All right, now that you've seen a lot of different kinds of designs for your straw towers, it's time for you to get together with your group members and start to design the tower you guys would like to make in your particular group. So I believe you have a Google Doc that I've shared with you, and that Google Doc looks something like this, Straw Tower Design Worksheet. So one of the first things that you guys should do is you should decide what kind of design you think you want to make in terms of a shape. Would you like to make an overall triangular shaped, and this is looking from the top? Would you like to make something that looks like a square from the top, or something that looks like a pentagon from the top? What I'm going to do is I'm going to design a tower that I would not approve in class, and I'll explain while I'm doing it why I would not approve it, and I'll also explain why I'm picking it. Okay, so I'm going to choose a three-sided triangle for no reason other than the fact that that's what I wanted to do. All of these structures, as long as they are built well, will hold 30 pounds. So don't feel like one is better than the other, because that's not necessarily the case. How many pillars in each corner? I am going to choose to do one pillar in each corner. And by the way, I'm doing this in pen so you can see it. As you're working, I would almost do it in pencil because I have a feeling you're probably going to change your mind as you go through this, and I'll explain how I would change my mind given my circumstances in a few minutes. Okay. Will I have pillars in the middle of the X's? What am I talking about? Well, remember there were some designs where if you looked at it from the top, this one was a square and they had one pillar in every corner. But then remember they had pillars that went through the middle of the X's in the center of each of the sides. That's kind of the design I'm talking about. I am not going to do that. Again, if you are, then you would choose yes. So if I have a three-sided triangle and I have one pillar in every corner, I'm not doing any pillars in the middle. How many total pillars will I have? I will have 3 pillars. So you need to calculate how many total pillars you would have. Next, you need to make a choice. Will you be making your pillars out of 1.5 straws or 2 straws? Now remember, if you're going to do 1.5 straws, you're going to have a small overlap, which is not a big deal. But in order to get it to be 30 centimeters tall in the end, you can't overlap very much. If you choose to do 2 straws, then you can have a bigger overlap, and I can choose to overlap this even more just by shoving the 2 straws together, because the way I have it right now is at about 40 centimeters. Now, how are you going to know? Well, you might not. I have some tips for you here in a second. So right now, I'm just going to decide to do 2. Again, if I'm doing it in pencil, then I can change my mind later, and I may change my mind later. So now, how many total straws will I need to make all of the pillars? Well, if each pillar has 2 straws, and I have 3 pillars total, 3 times 2, of course, is 6 total straws is how many it's going to take me to use to make the pillars for my design. So the next thing I want you to do for number 7 is to draw a top view. All you have to do in the Google Doc is just double click on this. I have it started for you. You can simply copy and paste the things that I already have for you. This should look like the shape overall. So my shape overall is going to be a triangle. So I would put another line here and another line here. And then the circles represent each pillar, and you're supposed to put where the locations of the pillars are going to be. So I'm going to have only one pillar in the first corner, only one pillar in the second corner, and only one pillar in the third corner. Now, I know the video I had the other day was a little difficult to see, so maybe if this is a little closer up, you can see it better. So this would be a triangle. You'll notice that there are 3 circles in the first corner, 3 circles in the second corner, and 3 circles in the third corner. So obviously I would have 3 per corner, and that would make a total of 9 pillars if I were doing that example. Here is a different top view. This would be a square from the top, so you can see that it looks like a square. And it has 2 pillars in the first corner, 2 pillars in the second corner, 2 pillars in the third corner, 2 pillars in the fourth corner, for a total of 8 pillars. Now, if you were going to do a pentagon, A pentagon, and I apologize because mine is terrible, but a pentagon would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, and it would have, this particular design has 2 pillars in every corner, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 circles, and that would be what a pentagon would look like, and I hope you can draw one better than I can. So anyway, you would draw your top view, what it would look like next. Okay, then you have to start thinking about your X's. Remember with your X's, you had a lot of different choices. Are you going to make X's that are going to be one whole straw in one direction and one whole straw in the other direction, or is it going to be a half a straw in one direction, a half a straw in the other direction? At this point, you need to start thinking about how many total straws you will be using. You're only allowed 30. So sometimes that plays a factor. So I have determined that I'm going to do 2 X's on a side. So I'm going to fill in 2 X's. And one part of the X is going to be a whole straw, and the other part of the X is going to be another whole straw. So I would do 1 straw per side of the X. In which case, it's going to take me quite a few straws to make those X's, which is okay. I'm okay with that because I didn't use very many straws for my pillars. So how many X's will there be in total? Well, I said 2 per side. So I happen to be using a triangle. So if I have 2 X's on this side and 2 X's on this side, that's 4, and 2 more on this side, that's 6. I would have 6 total X's. Now, you want to make sure you're symmetrical. So yes, all sides should be the same. Okay, next, question number 11 says, how many straws will it take to make all of the X's? Well, remember, it's going to take me 2 straws to make a single X. So 2 more straws to make the other X, so that's 4. So I have 4 straws on this side, plus 4 more on that side is 8, plus 4 more on that side is 12 straws in all. And hopefully this is making sense. I will count them out again on my next page. The next page, it asks me to draw the side view of my tower. Now again, I have it started for you already. So all you have to do is double click on it and you should be able to copy and paste. You might need to make this side shorter or longer, whatever you need to do, feel free to do that. Right now I already have 1 X on this side, so I would copy and paste that line, I would copy and paste that line, and that would be 2 X's. And then I would shorten this up and shorten this up so it looks a little bit neater, and it looks like a whole side. So that would be my side view. So again, let's count straws. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 straws, and there were 3 sides. 4 times 3 makes a total of 12 straws to make all of my X's. All right, now the next part says determine the angle between the pillar and one diagonal of the X. So here's your pillar, and you need to start at the pillar and you need to go towards the X, and how big are you going to make that angle? Well, let me give you some common choices. Some common choices include 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees. Are those the only choices you could make? Heck no, I've had people use 35s and 40s and 42s. Whatever it is that you think you want. Now, I'll give you a tip. When you're deciding your angle, a couple of different things. First thing, if this angle is relatively small, so this is my pillar and I'm only going to turn a small angle, you'll notice that my diagonal right now is pretty steep. So that's going to make my tower be tall and skinny. If I were to do a 60-degree angle, that's a pretty big angle. So I would go more than halfway and do something like this. Now you'll notice this time that my diagonal is down pretty far, which is going to make my tower be pretty wide. And to be honest with you, there's usually kind of a happy medium. If you stand with your feet together and somebody tries to push you over, it's pretty easy to do. If you move your feet a little bit wider apart and you stand about shoulder width and somebody tries to push you, usually you have a little more balance about you. If you were to put your feet out really wide and somebody came by and tried to push you, they could probably push you over pretty well as also. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Think about your tower and think about, should it be skinny and tall? Should it be a little fatter and wider? There's usually a little happy medium, and it kind of depends on how many X's you're doing and how many straws you're doing. All of those things matter. Now, I had a hard time deciding what angle I was going to use, so this is my next tip for you. My next tip for you would be to get a couple of pieces of blank paper. And I don't know if you can tell, but I taped my papers together. And why did I pick two pieces of paper? Because one piece of paper isn't 30 centimeters tall, and I know my tower has to be 30 centimeters tall. So anyway, then what I did is I took my ruler and I measured a 30 centimeter line. So right here I have a 30 centimeter straight line that's going to represent one pillar. So then what I did is I took a protractor next and I just started playing. Now remember, when you use a protractor, the center of the protractor goes where you're going to put your line. And quite frankly, I started down here at the bottom of my paper. So I put my little center dot right where I was going to start my diagonal line. I lined up all of the lines here on the pillar, and then I started to measure. Okay, if I did 30 degrees, what would that look like? If I did 40 degrees, what would that look like? How about 45? How about 60? So I just kind of eyeballed it. Now, what I usually tell students to do is if you're stuck and you don't really know, start drawing it. You'll see how big your tower is going to be. Remember, a straw is 20.6 centimeters. A half a straw is about 10.3. And that's give or take. It's pretty close to 20.6. So when I was measuring this, I knew I was going to be using a whole straw. So I decided, well, I want to see what a 45 looks like. Again, I measured from the pillar to the vector. And then I measured out 20.3 to see about how wide would my tower be. Now notice I didn't put in that second line yet. I was going to kind of play with the angles, and when I'm all done, I'm going to put in the second line. Now the thing that I like about this is it's kind of a template for you. What you can do afterwards is you can then take this and use it. You can lay your straw down on this, and then lay your next straw down on this, and you can just pin, and you don't have to measure the angles with the straws. You've already measured it on the paper. So I kind of like to do this little paper design for that reason alone. And I decided I'm going to make mine 45 because I kind of liked how wide it was, and it still met the height requirement because I made my original line be that 30 centimeters. Now, because I was using double straws here, I had the opportunity to kind of stretch this out if I needed to up at the top here. So I could have made mine taller than 30 centimeters. There's no rule that says that you can't be taller. There is a rule that says that you can't be shorter. So I determined that my angle here was going to be a 45-degree angle. And my last step here is to calculate how many straws total I would need in order to build this tower. So if I go back and look at number 6, it was 6 straws for the pillars. Number 11 was 12 straws for all the X's. And if I totaled that up, I would need 18 straws to make my tower. Now, 18 straws isn't anywhere close to the 30 that you're given. Just for the record, if you make a triangle, you can use all 30. If you make an overall shape of a pentagon, you can use all 30. If you make a square, there is no way to keep it symmetrical and use all 30. Is that a bad thing? Absolutely not. I have seen lots of square towers that have held 30 pounds and haven't used all 30 straws. So that's okay. Remember, it's a maximum of 30 straws. Now, if I were coming around and I were evaluating your tower, I would probably say to you, you got a lot of straws left. Can you keep it symmetrical and maybe add another pillar in each corner? Would you exceed your number of straws? Could you maybe add another X on each side? Even if the X's overlap, that's cool. Remember, we saw towers that had overlapping. So if you were using that few straws, 18 out of 30, I would probably talk you into changing your design because those extra straws are going to matter. Now, I'm having a hard time thinking, let alone to put a tower together to demonstrate for you. So I chose 18 straws on purpose. my tower is not going to meet the requirements. I can pretty much guarantee you it's not going to hold 30 pounds. There's an alternate reason why I'm doing that. I don't want you stealing my design. I want you making your own. So that's kind of my idea behind it and why I'm choosing such a crappy tower, but those are the things that I would kind of talk you into. All right, so that's how you would design your tower, and my next video will be about the math.